Mr. Graham.
Here. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we move on, Alex, if you can make your announcement, please.
Good evening, everyone. We've got a little bit of a larger crowd tonight, so I'd like to welcome everyone to the live broadcast of the Streetsboro Board of Education meeting. I'm Alex Antonsik. As usual, tonight's meeting is being held in the Defra Intermediate Cafeteria, and I'll throw it back on over to School Board President Brian Violi.
Thank you, Alex, and we will move on to the first order of business is election of officers. Need a nomination for president.
I nominate Kevin Grimm.
Second.
We have a first and second. Do we have any other nominations? I ask that we close the nominations and ask the treasurer to call the board by roll.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Bala?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Great. You got to do the oath of office.
If you can please stand and raise your right hand, I'll read the oath of office to you, and if you can just agree to it at the conclusion, and then I'll need you to sign this. Okay. I hereby affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, that I will act in accordance with all laws governing my services, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as president of the Streetsboro City School District Board of Education.
I will.
Thank you. All right, see if I can pick up where Brian, I got to sign where it's official. Okay, item C, nomination and election of 2019 Board Vice President. Any nominations? I'd like to nominate Mrs. Bala. Been moved and seconded. Any other nominations? Mr. Scarspino, call for the vote, please.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Bala?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Congratulations. Please stand and raise your right hand and agree to this. I hereby affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, that I will act in accordance with all laws governing my services, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as Vice President of the Streetsboro City School District Board of Education.
I will.
Section 3, organizational business. Item A, it is recommended that during calendar year 2019, the Board of Education hold its regular meeting on the second Thursday of each month at 6 p.m. at Henry Defra Intermediate in accordance with the following schedule, and you'll see that on your computers listed below. I'll move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. One item for discussion in May 9th. I know I have a conflict. It doesn't matter if we still have the meeting. If we can move it to the following week, that's probably better for me, but if not, we can keep it on the 9th as well. Whatever the majority is good with. I'm good with it.
I'm okay. On the 16th?
May 16th, that's just 1 week later. I have my, that would be on that date. Okay, so if we do move to that, I would not be able to make both. Okay. What's the board's wishes? Want to keep it on the 9th? Either way, we're going to be short one person.
I'm okay with moving it.
We did the 16th, you can do it
Can we do the week before?
Wednesday.
Or yeah, I'm fine.
On the 15th? I'd be good. Is it May 15th? Or the,
So the Wednesday after that, right?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, main meeting will be on May 15th. Any other comments?
We're good with next month on Valentine's Day? Just agree.
I think we did it once before.
Make sure that all my wife knows that it's not my fault. Brought it up to the meetings, so.
Let the record show Mr. Kelly wants it on. Okay. All right.
Brought it
No,
up.
if there is changes, we can address February later. Mr. Scarsky, call for the vote, please.
Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Mrs. Baba,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes. Item B, regular fiscal year-end meeting. It is recommended that during calendar year 2019, the Board of Education hold its regular fiscal year-end financial meeting at Henry Denver Intermediate in accordance with the following schedule, and that is Thursday, June 27th at 6 p.m.
I'll move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mrs. Baba,
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes, motion carries. Item C, regular strategic planning meeting. It is recommended that during calendar year 2019, the Board of Education hold its regular strategic planning meeting at Henry Denver Intermediate in accordance with the following schedule. And that is, we have a date on that, Mr. Gallo?
Let's make that as a point of discussion.
Okay. What would you?
I would suggest or make the recommendation that we hold that date to be determined and see what happens with our May levy, and then that can serve as a day to search options should that levy not pass.
We'll just agree right now that we will,
But to be determined.
to be determined. Okay, and we need to vote on this.
I would say we vote on it and say to be determined.
Okay. So we'll agree to hold a strategic planning meeting, exact date to be determined.
I'll move. I'll second.
Been first and seconded, any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes.
Mrs. Baba.
Yes.
Mr. Violi.
Yes. Motion carries. Item D, regular annual board tour meeting. It is recommended that during calendar year 2019, the Board of Education hold its regular annual board tour meeting at Streetsboro Middle School in accordance with the following schedule. And you'll see it there, that's starting at the middle school, moving to Henry Denver Elementary School, and concluding at the high school. I move.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? I do want to discuss that. Is it possible to start earlier that day? Because the second Thursday is all the Maplewood working, so I would not be able to make it through the whole meeting.
I don't think all
If not, it's not.
How much earlier? 5?
In 5, we probably, I'd say 5:30 even would be great. We could start at half an hour early. We'd probably be able to get to at least a couple of buildings and shoot over there. Okay, everybody okay with 5:30? Actually, stand by. No, leave it that time. We changed the time for our meetings to start at 5:12. Okay. Okay, no changes. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Just to be clear, are we changing it to 5:30, keeping it?
You got it at 6. I'm sorry, we just changed that tonight at our meeting, so we changed our time for the meeting. So plus,
Mr. Violi,
yes.
Mrs. Baba,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes, motion carries. Item E, order of business. It is recommended that during calendar year 2019, the Board of Education follow the order of business listed below, which you'll see on your computers.
I'll move.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mrs. Baba.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes, that motion carries. Item F, board liaisons to the superintendent and treasurer. It is recommended that the following will be the board liaisons to the superintendent and treasurer for 2019 with membership, as you'll see on your computers.
I'll move.
I'll second. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mrs. Baba.
Yes.
Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson.
Yes.
Mr. Grimm.
Yes. Motion carries. Item G, board member compensation. It is recommended that the Board of Education members be compensated for attended meetings and attendance of professional development activities in accordance with Resolution 2003-1-6 as adopted at the 2003 organizational meeting.
I'll move.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Ms. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes. Motion carries. Item H, Service Fund. It is recommended that the Board of Education establish a service fund for 2019 in the amount of $10,000.
I'll move.
I'll second. Been moved and seconded. Mr. Galva, could you just explain, since we have a large crowd, what that service fund is for?
The service fund, I believe, pays for your trip to Capitol Conference that you guys are required to attend each year. That's where the majority of that money goes.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Ms. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes. Motion carries. Item I, Ohio School Boards Association membership. It is recommended that the Board of Education renew its membership in the Ohio School Boards Association for calendar year 2019, marking the board's 63rd year, consecutive year of membership. I'll move. I will second. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Baba?
I'm going to abstain as an officer of OSBA.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
That motion carries. Item J, Ohio School Boards Association Legal Assistance Fund. It is recommended that the Board of Education participate in the Ohio School Boards Association Legal Assistance Fund for calendar year 2019.
I'll move.
I'll second. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Ms. Baba?
I'm going to abstain as a member of OSBA.
Mr.
Board of
Gibson?
Trustees.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes. That motion carries. Item K, Ohio School Boards Association Legislative Liaison. It is recommended that Denise Babbitt serve as the board's official legislative liaison for calendar year 2019. I'll move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes. That motion carries. Item L, Ohio School Boards Association Academic Achievement Liaison. It is recommended that John Kelly serve as the board's official academic liaison for calendar year 2019.
I'll move.
I'll second. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Absolutely.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes, that motion carries. Item M, Tax Incentive Review Council. It is recommended that Andrew Gibson serve as the board's official representative to the Streetsboro Tax Incentive Review Council for calendar year 2019.
I'll move.
I'll second. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes, that motion carries. Back here. Item N, designation of legal counsel. It is recommended that the Board of Education designate the following firms or their successors or assigns as legal counsel for calendar year 2019 on an as-needed basis by the board superintendent and/or treasurer.
I'll move.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes. Motion carries. Item O, standing authorizations. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the following standing authorizations to allow for the efficient management and full execution of duties as set forth below.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Just again, for the community, this is standard that we have here. This is employment of personnel between board meetings, acceptance of resignations, grant applications, and so forth. Things that need to be done to continue the business of the school district in between board meetings. That just gives the superintendent authorization on an annual basis to do those things. Call for the vote, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Motion carries. And item 4, motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Anybody want to stay around? No? Call for the vote.
Mr. Violi?
Yep.
Ms. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yep.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes. The motion carries. This meeting is adjourned at 6:45. Give us just a moment to switch over. Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Mr. Sparskino, call the roll, please.
Mr. Violi? Here. Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Mrs. Bava?
Here.
Mr. Gibson? Here. Mr. Grimm?
Yes, here. Moving down to item C, public comments. Before we get started, something that we normally read. Community comments are one way for citizens to communicate with the Board of Education. When your name is called, please come to the podium. State your name, address, and topic. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Remember, this is a formal and official meeting of the Board of Education, and what you say becomes part of the official meeting record. If your comment involves a problem with a student, employee, or board member, please do not identify them by name. Keep in mind, we are meeting in a school and in the presence of students. At this time, our primary role is to listen and reflect on what is said. Sometimes we may respond or ask questions, but not always. And I'll add to that if we're taking notes, it's not that we're ignoring you, it's we're writing stuff down. Whether we respond or not, please know that we do actually value your opinion. We have one person signed up tonight, and that is Ira Campbell.
At this time, we're going to go quiet for a little bit as we do not hear public comments, but just hold tight and we'll be back in a few moments.
Thank you. Ira Campbell, 1145 Sparrow Run. When I first got hired in Streetsboro almost 16 years ago, I never could have anticipated what the district and the community would end up meaning to me. It is where I have chosen to be employed, where I have chosen to live, raise a family, and have my 3 children educated. We have established deep connections with countless individuals and families and have many lasting friendships of like-minded people. People who value diversity, hard work, and education. As we are coming up on this levy campaign, I'm in a unique position, similar to a few others. I am an employee and a resident. The decisions made and potential effects will impact me in all aspects of my professional and personal life. I would like to reiterate to the community that this levy is important. We need to do what's best for our children, our future, property value, and the overall well-being of our city. The impact the money from this levy will have cannot be overstated. I see firsthand how cuts would hurt the education of our children and have a negative impact for years to come. I see firsthand the benefit of the programs, the many teachers and educators, and the electives our students are able to access. I would also like to speak as a Streetsboro parent. Our community is educated, intelligent, and passionate about this district. As a school board and administration, teachers, counselors, and employees, we have to listen to our community. The levy in November was a referendum on the problems and concerns that we need to address and work to change. I am vocal in letting people in this city know that a no vote is not the way to send this message, but the message was sent. Our community deserves to have their voice heard, and the trust needs to be built. We are people who have supported schools and want to support this levy. We are also a community that wants better and meaningful communication, wants to be involved, and desires accountability of all of us as a school district. My hope is that we can work together, and as a district, we will listen, reflect, and address the concerns within our schools. I would ask the school board to put the highest millage that they see fit, even 10 mills. And I would also ask the board and our entire district to work with the community. If our community knows that their voice will be heard and the concerns and problems of the past will be addressed and not brushed to the side, they will vote yes. Those who support the schools need to have this trust rebuilt. I will continue to always be a yes voter, and I will continue to encourage everyone that I come in contact with to vote yes. I will also encourage my fellow community members and friends to speak up and advocate for this village and for their children. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. And I just wanted to make a quick comment on a couple of things that you said and something that I wanted to say during this meeting anyways. I knew we were going to have a lot of people here. You had said, listen to the community and trust needs to be built. I think that there's been things where we're trying to get the message out to the community of what we need. We haven't had people here. We normally don't have people at our meetings until something comes up. You have my promise that we will work together to try to find other ways. Community, we can't do every means of, like, Snapchat and all that other stuff that everybody's doing. But we can try to find better ways to communicate and get that message out to you. And that is my pledge to you. We've had a lot of comments. I know every board member here has had emails, phone calls over the last few weeks and couple months. And whether it's been responded to or not, I hope most of them have been responded to. But we're taking that into consideration. And this is not an easy decision for us. And we appreciate everything that the community has done to support this district and to voice your concerns to us. Okay, moving on to item 2, approval of minutes. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the minutes from 12/13/18 and 12/19/18 as submitted.
I'll move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Ms. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Wheeler?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes, motion carries. Section 3, reports. Superintendent, Mr. Dell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to begin with something on the lighter side, of celebration, if you will. Many people in the audience don't know that actually January is Board Appreciation Month. And this year's theme for Board Appreciation Month is actually the Ohio School Board Association has asked us to honor our board members as all-star teammates. So just very quickly, I don't know that a lot of the students in the room and very probably a lot of the adults in the room understand the commitment these 5 and the work these 5 put into their job. Work tirelessly, all in their own way. They care very deeply about the school district, its community, and they make decisions based on that goal of creating a school district that's top for our students. I know all 5 of them work tirelessly. And so at this time, we had students in the district write letters of appreciation to all of you. So if our principals can come up and present those letters, and I have a certificate of appreciation, and we also have a cookie so that you can a little snack. So at this time, our principals will come up and present that.
I'll say I always thought it was a little odd to have Board Appreciation Month in January, because after an election year, you've just got elected, and if you're new, you haven't done anything yet. But I think is it in the revised code, or there's some place where it's an official actual day in the state of Ohio? Yeah.
So if we could, please give our board a round of applause for the students. Moving on, our next presentation.
Just real quick. These are going up on my refrigerator. My wife gets a little notes from the kids on the bus every once in a while, but I'm going to trump her with these ones. This is pretty cool. So thank you very much.
We really do appreciate all of those. Well, we appreciate it. I know that we don't sell it up, and I know you guys you aren't really paid a lot to do this job. They haven't had a raise. Most boards raise the compensation for board members every year. This board has chosen not to do that since 2003. So I can promise you that the time that they put in, they're not even remotely compensated. So it's
this really, to me, this makes it worth it for what I do here. To get handwritten notes from students at the elementary level, it gets me a little choked up. So I really appreciate it.
You know, since we're on this thing now, let's continue. I don't think anybody up here, Mr. Gibson's the newest member of the board. Everybody else here has served at least one, if not multiple terms on the Board of Education. It's definitely not done for the money. You only get paid twice a year, just so you know. But it's sometimes the most difficult thing you've ever done, But in the end, if you can go to sleep at night and know that you did the best that you can do for the citizens of this community, for the school district, then, you know, that's what allows me to sleep at night. And, you know, when we start getting tons of emails and phone calls about things that are going wrong, you know, that hits deep. And whether you think we're listening or not, we do. And I know that we're no different than most other elected officials I know, at least here in Streetsboro, that really care about what we do. So keep those comments coming, and we'll keep reaching back out to you. Keep those lines of communication open. I'm going to compare these later. All right, thanks again.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. We're going to have Andres Johansson present our Did You Know? And the idea behind our Did You Know section of our board meetings is to point out something in the district that maybe you did not know that was going on. So this is more of an education session for all of you. So Andres?
So good evening, my name is Andres Johansson. I'm the Director of Technology and Transportation for the district. My topic that I want to share with you today is some of the process improvements that we've done in our transportation department over the last month and a half. One of the things I wanted to do right away when I came in was try to build value for our department there, for the team, for the driver team, and then build value for our district. And one of the things that the transportation department spends a lot of time on is driving our kids to and from sporting events, other events, not just picking up in the morning or dropping off in the afternoon. So I didn't want that becoming a failure part, and there's a lot of trips. So any given day we have 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 trips that go out. They typically go out after our PM trips and then come back sometime later. So a typical example would be a sports team going to a match and then coming back home. So we fill that with regular drivers. So I wanted to share with the board a little bit sort of the quick process improvement cycle that we put together in order to make that happen. So I used a couple different models myself kind of in my brain at all times. And one is the SWOT analysis, which is the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Kind of, that's how I see the world. And so I spent a lot of time in that green square looking for opportunities on how to make something better. So I wanted to share that with you today. So we're going to focus on how to make it better. Here's the trip ticket that I found that I've been used for a long time. It's a triplicate form. It's on a half sheet of paper. It's filled out by hand. It doesn't create a lasting record. There's no archive of this other than sort of the paper copy. After time, it fades and it's hard to see depending on who fills it out. And my handwriting is no good. It's kind of hard to deal with. It also doesn't have a map, doesn't have contact information, didn't have a lot of the things that we actually needed and wanted to make trips successful. So the second version that was implemented sometime in the fall by my predecessor used an Excel sheet. It's a little bit more colorful, kind of easier to find, but it was implemented sort of on a one-time basis. So it was filled out, printed, and then the information was erased and then filled out again and then printed just using the template. Again, not creating a lasting record of trips, not being able to update it real quick, and then creating a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to sit there and manually type it all out. So another cycle that I use is the continuous improvement cycle. So this is, again, how I think and feel and work. So identify one of those opportunities, and then we look at how to plan how to fix that, and then we execute it, and then we review. And this cycle can, this could be a 5-second cycle, could be a 1-hour cycle, could be sort of, let's try it for a day and see how it works. And so that's what I implemented with the trip tickets. Again, we had a lot of trips that I inherited right away. There's probably like 60 trips that we have to make sure that, okay, this is going here, that bus is over here, and this, we had a bus shortage in the fall, we had a driver shortage still today. So it's a real hassle. One of the things I focused on was then to make sure that all the requirements were met. In the past, transportation has been on a little bit of an island, so it's been sort of a phone call from someone who needs a trip, and they're like, hey, can you do a trip in 10 minutes? And then it's been a scramble to get a bus and a driver and mileage and everything figured out. So I sat down with our team and said, well, what are the requirements? What is it that we need from transportation in order to make a trip happen? And then what does everyone else need? And one of the things that we didn't have was contact information for coaches, for example. So on any given trip, I had no idea who the coach was. I couldn't get a hold of them. And that makes it hard because what door are we going to pick you up by? Where do we drop off? Here's the bus, so on and so forth. So we implemented, and you know, Google Suites is a big deal in Streetsboro. I think I talked to you about that before. So we implemented a function where we have a big master spreadsheet, and I'll show you what some of that looks like. And then we run some workflows out of that spreadsheet, and then that generates a trip ticket. So here's an idea of what the trip ticket looks like today. This is the first half, and I shared an actual one from today with you, so you can see the whole one. It prints out on an 8.5 by 11. try to make it as clear as possible. I grade some of that stuff out there so that there's some sensitive information that we don't want to have, like a gate code, how to get into the bus garage, and then the Wi-Fi password on the bus. Because yes, we do have Wi-Fi on the buses. That's how we do all the GPS tracking. I presented to our PTA yesterday on that. So try to make it as clear as possible. Try to put stuff in the right place. So for the driver to see, okay, who am I? Where am I going? What date am I going to go? Who's the supervisor in case they need to call me, right? How do I get into the driver compound or the transportation compound? Who am I picking up? Where am I going? How many are they? So on and so forth. And then on the bottom sheet, we added with some feedback from the fall with our transportation consultant. He said one of the things that's missing is the safety briefing. And most of you know how to ride a school bus, right? But most of us need a sort of a remembering, like, hey, don't stick your body out the window kind of thing, believe it or not, right? So we added the whole safety briefing, just clear text. For new drivers, for substitutes, literally read this. And then we talked to our drivers and we said, listen, if you take the baseball team every day or every time, right, after the 10th time, the baseball team, they're going to know, like within a couple of weeks, right? But then we ask them to initial, the trip leader initials, and then we ask for all the data that we then need, right? Start miles, end miles, how long did it take, how many people were on there, and so on, because we track that for the state. So we have to report to the state, how many people are we transporting, how long are we out, and then for our bus fleet, how many miles are we putting on buses that are not AM and PM runs. And on a regular day, we transport about 1,700 to 1,800 students, and we drive a couple thousand miles. That's every day. That's just AM and PM pick up and drop. And then we go to Rootstown and Cloverleaf and Coventry and all of those. All right, so what do? Here's the workflow, and I didn't want to kind of bore you, but I think it makes kind of sense what we do. So I work with athletics. That's our main customer in terms of who does most of the trips with transportation. So we have access to a spreadsheet starting in that top left-hand corner that's live, up to date, saves automatically. And when Debbie Stockard and I look at the spreadsheet together over the phone, we're looking at the exact same thing at the same time. So if there's an address change, if there's a group change, if there's a coach change, if there's anything that needs to get changed, we fix it. And when the spreadsheet is ready to go, I fire off that yellow button. I say, run the workflow. And the workflow then creates the ticket automatically. And then it emails it out to the driver. It emails it to me, emails it to athletics, emails it to the coach or whoever's the trip person, right, the trip leader. And then we also print it out because we're still sort of, and I'll show you a future state. Print out. So easy, they can fill it out, turn it in. So then they get in their email, they have a trip ticket. I also generate a map link. So right from their email, they can click and say, boom, where am I going? If they need it later. Or if they're out on location and they need to figure out how to get back home, they can use that link to kind of figure that out. Take some Google Maps, and then it gives it all the information they need. My information, driver's information, coach's information. And I love how our drivers and coaches work together to solve problems. So half the time it's sort of like the coach needs them to come a little bit later, pick them up just 200 meters over there, and they just text the driver and we make it happen. It's beautiful, great. So here's a spreadsheet. It's very large. And I'm a spreadsheet nerd, so you should know that. So the green stuff is good to go. Red trips shows us that here are trips that don't have a driver. So I look at this every day. We look at, okay, boom, how many trips we got? Who do we need to fill? And then the white ones are all the ones that are good to go. Drivers have been assigned. We can run the trip tickets. We run that on a weekly basis on a Monday. We get them out for the whole week, so we have them done, and we'll add as needed. Then we tap into some stuff, and I see a lot of students here. One thing that you should look at for later in life is to learn some spreadsheet magic. We tap into a formula called a query, which is basically a question. So I teach my 11-year-old this at home. I say query is basically a question. So you have a big data set. Now you say, I want to see this where this is true. So in this case, I say, I want to see all the trips where the date equals today. And a spreadsheet knows what day it is. So you just say, show me today. I don't have to type in the date. And then it shows me today we had three trips. So then I don't have to look at 900 trips, I look at 3. And then I brought in the information that I need. So the emails to the coaches, trip leaders, their cell numbers in case I need to text them, so on and so forth. And then we bid on trips. And so in transportation, it goes by seniority. It's all bid out according to who's been there the longest. That's called the seniority list. So if you've been there the longest, you get to bid first, and then we go down the list, and then we repeat, and so on and so forth. So I designed this part of the spreadsheet for print use because we like that on our monthly meetings to sort of say, here are the trips that are available. I want to bid on this one. And then I added a column the trip bid ID, because there's lots of stuff going on. So I'd rather hear a driver say, well, I want trip number 7. Boom, boom, cross them off, and then off we go to speed some things up. And then, of course, I'm a nerd, so I want to know, okay, who are the drivers who get most of the trips? And so then I built a pivot table, and that's another one for the students. Learn how to build pivot tables. And so we take that massive spreadsheet that now has like, I think 300 rows. It probably has, it's probably like 35 columns. And then we just say, take all the drivers, count all their trips, make it pretty. Steve Chapman and Joe Earl. Joe's out on the road right now driving one of our teams. Just so I can keep track, just for no reason. Okay? So then in my mind, so what we've done, I think we shared with this in the fall, we talked about Samsara, and that's what I shared with the PTA yesterday. We track our buses with GPS. We do pre-trip inspections using this program. It lives on a tablet. All of our drivers have a tablet. And so my future state of our trip tickets is to sort of, what have we removed over here? Because I heard some of the students were very concerned, and I'm concerned too. So what have we removed? Let's see if we can figure out the symbology. We removed the paper. So my goal is to not have to print those tickets out, because every driver has a tablet. That tablet connects to the internet. So get your trip ticket, pull up your map, drive to the place, fill out a Google form with how many attended and safety briefing and so on and so forth, and get it signed off by the trip leader, and then off we go. And then guess what? That comes back to us in a spreadsheet as opposed to an inbox with a bunch of paper, which then we have to do double do. Does that make sense? So that's what I've spent some time doing in the fall, because I wanted this system to work, and I want it to be near effortless, and I wanted the failure rate to be very low, so that we made sure that we had a bus to the sports team that needed to go when they needed to go. Now, I will say we have a driver shortage in terms of substitutes and drivers. We have one substitute, and so to get a trip earlier than 4 p.m. is sometimes impossible. Tomorrow we're going to try to make some magic happen. We already have 1 or 2 drivers out. So we're going to have to do like sort of a drop off and pick up and then kind of juggle. So we'll solve that next time. So that's it. Thanks, Gary. What questions do you have?
I do have a question. I know that just doing that doesn't just save paper. You're setting up a process that's going to save somebody a lot of time also.
Yep.
So, and time is money. So someone say, I understand what you're showing us. I'm not a big fan of pivot tables. I don't know how to make them, but I like the information that I can get from them.
Right.
So, but I can see a lot of time being saved by what we just accomplished there in a short period of time. Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it.
And I think a lot of people would be intimidated by taking an electronic device and doing everything on it versus I'm used to doing it on paper. But I know you're the guy to do it. I know you're the guy to teach them how to do it, because we had pretty much everybody from the fire department come over to the high school, was it last year?
Yep.
And you taught all of us how to basically access Gmail and all the fun stuff that goes with it. So if you can teach the fire department how to access something new, you can teach the bus drivers. So
Drivers are a super team. So we have everyone except for one still needs a tablet. They're on email. They're checking email. It's good. One step at a time.
Andreas, thank you for the time to do that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, I want to thank Andreas too, because when we assigned him the duties of transportation supervisor in addition to his duties as director of technology, this was one of the things he knew he had to do to survive. And Brian, you pointed it out. This is saving someone a lot of time, and it's not only saving your drivers and our transportation department a lot of time. It's saving Andreas a lot of time, and it's enabling him to do the job. But I do want the board, I do want all of you to know that he's working probably 15, 16-hour days, quite a bit right now, and he has really taken that department. It's a great group of ladies and men. They've lined up behind him. They're supporting him. He's made some changes over there. That change is always difficult. People are kind of looking at him like, what? And they're giving him a chance. And I think the resistance has been very little, and they're seeing his efforts are really paying off. And I want to personally thank Andreas for all the work he's putting in to not only the transportation department, but what you saw him do up there with process flow. He's doing that in almost every part of the district. That was one of the big reasons we hired him when he interviewed. He talked a lot about process management, and that's how his brain works. And we thought, this is the guy we need to have. So, Andreas, thank you for everything that you're doing.
Appreciate it
a lot.
Thank you.
It's appreciated. Okay. Moving on. So now we get to the levy discussion. So last month we had 2 meetings, and we walked away and we still did not have a millage set. So we just to point out a reminder, we need to have a resolution of necessity or intent, resolution of intent and resolution of necessity by February 6th. So we're going to need to decide on the millage tonight. We're going to have to pass that resolution later in the meeting. We'll have to fill it in before we get down to the resolution of necessity. And then we'll have to have that certified, CJ will have to have it certified by the auditor. And then we'll have to have a special meeting for a resolution of intent to proceed. So very quickly, you also know that we had to submit our letter to the Ohio Department of Education. By January 4th, that letter has been submitted. It's down in your administrative section on your laptop. Also, when you look down at the bottom there, you see an item that says menu of items for possible reduction. If you guys would please open that, I'd appreciate that. So as you're opening that, this board gave CJ and I the task of identifying programs, employees, things that could be cut in the event that the levy doesn't pass. And now we know that based on the millage, anything other than a 10 mil levy will require us to make some cuts in the district. Okay, so we came up with a list, and that list that you're looking at adds up to over $3 million. Now that is a menu, to remind you, that is a menu. That's not a list that we're going to do everything on that. It's going to all be based upon the millage that we choose to put on the levy or on the ballot in May. This list was given to all staff today. From Monday through today, our principals and administrators met with individual staff members whose names are on this list by essence of the program. Okay, so all of our staff has been informed. They all received a letter from me this afternoon with this list, and with the board's permission, what I would like to do is post this list on the website tomorrow, and I'd also like to construct a letter and email all of our district parents this list along with what millage you decide on tomorrow, so that they all have this. I think it's important for everyone to see what's on this menu and the potential cuts that could be made based on the millage that you choose or if the levy fails in May. So what I did is I tried to organize this list by district items and then all the way down by building. Obviously, you're going to see more at the high school because the high school, in essence, offers most of our programming in the form of electives and programs and supplementals, clubs. And then as you get down all the way down to the elementary, it's more based on staffing. As I said in our last meeting, we are staffing in the core area. We are thin. We don't have a lot of room to cut in our core area. However, we are elective thick. And that's because we have added programs, opportunities for our students. Our students in Streetsboro have more electives, more opportunities than kids in other districts. So that's how that's organized. Are there any questions about what you see in front of you? And again, I'd like your acknowledgement permission to put that on the website and email that out to parents tomorrow.
Absolutely. I don't think it's a problem. I think it's beneficial for everybody to see this.
Mike, you said it would be over 3 million.
Yes, this list that you're looking at, the reason there's not a dollar figure put, I didn't put one next to each one of these things because depending on the choices that you make, what happens is if you cut program A and you have 2 teachers running that program, those teachers may have more seniority than someone else with the same certification. So then there could be bumping. So you really can't put a true dollar figure to it until you decide exactly what's going to be cut. Then you have to look at who that impacts. Is there certification? You have to look at comparable evaluations. You have to follow the negotiated agreement. So to say that this cut would cost this or save this much money, we've only estimated it. And if you remember before, I said that CJ, when we talked about this, we did everything at a bachelor step 0. So a brand new teacher coming in with a family plan. But we know that these cuts could impact somebody with 20 years of experience. So we kept everything on an estimated basis until we have direction. That direction will be what you decide on for millage, and then we'll have to go back to this list then and do it and pick from this menu to address whatever millage you guys decide upon. And then that list will be presented to you at a future board meeting to be voted on, so then we can begin notification.
I know that I made the comment at the last meeting that charging you with coming up with a list for us to post and publish. And no matter what we choose, it has to pass, because this list is not then a menu, it's the list, in the way I'm viewing it. So whatever we choose, if it doesn't pass, this is the list, because it's a big number that we would have to accomplish, right? Am I correct in that assumption?
Yeah, in some way, shape, or form, we'd have to combine some things and to address the deficit for the next year.
But it would be
the
the majority of everything on this list.
Yeah, it'd be around, well, it'd probably be around 1.3 million next year, I believe.
And then it compounds.
And then it compounds.
So, so a couple of questions. So one, so when people kind of ask how we got here, the how we got here is on the one side, you know, funds are going down from the state level. On the other side, you mentioned briefly negotiated agreements that, you know, that carry out, that they compound over time too. So you have, and also in addition, we have rising costs on other ends.
Healthcare costs are rising at about 10 to 11% a year right now.
Yeah, so we have the decreased state funding, and we have rising costs due to things like healthcare, other costs associated with the negotiated agreement, and then just the general inflation that there is in any economy. We have been talking about this in board meetings because you have to present a 5-year forecast in the fall and in the spring. So that's basically how we got here. But to your point about why there's not a fixed number, there's an estimate here. So just in my own mind to clarify, so you're saying if it says that there's so I'm just looking at the high school, it says, if there's a social studies teacher, one secondary level social studies teacher, you can't put a name to that position because of seniority. Somebody with another certification that's not currently a social studies teacher, but who has seniority and is capable of teaching social studies can bump into that position.
It's a little more complicated than that, but in essence, yes. You have to look at certification and who can teach. The state of Ohio several years ago created a convoluted system of certification. It used to be grades 1 to 8 or K to 8. Then you used to have 4 to 9, and then the secondary. And now the grade bands are a little different. So it makes it then even more difficult. So we have our certifications are in that 4 to 9 group. So you can be certified social studies, for example, in 4 to 9. And then we have other folks that are certified 7 to 12 in social studies that maybe have some more years of experience. Some people have dual certifications, and then also as a part of our negotiated agreements, you also have to look at comparable evaluations over a 3-year period. So you aren't just looking at seniority, you have to look at evaluation.
That's what's relatively new, that evaluation portion of it.
It's been in the contract, but this is the end of the first cycle.
Okay, yeah, because
But it was a part of the new teacher evaluation system that was instituted, I think 6 years ago, 5 years ago, OTES. But it was born through that.
But the number, the basic number that you've given us, it's not going to be less than 3 million. These cuts will not, or you don't know that for sure.
It would not be less.
Okay.
If you looked at that entire sheet, it would not be less because we lowballed it.
Okay.
Bachelor step 0 family plan instead of single.
So we're not going to.
And then the supplemental costs are fixed. So a staff member, if they run the ski club, they get a supplemental contract for that. That is a fixed, and that's part of the negotiated agreement.
Okay.
So we know those costs.
Okay.
But then there's also something called longevity. So if you've been in the district longer, you get a longevity payment as well. So that's why until you know exactly what you're going to potentially cut, and then you start putting names to it, that's when all those pieces start to come together. So that's why I was hesitant. I'm not going to put numbers on here, because when people see numbers next to programs, they automatically think that's it. And then if we come back later and the number's different, it looks as though we weren't being transparent. So I didn't put any numbers on it until we know what they are, and that's when we'll put numbers to it.
But the 3 million is a conservative estimate, so that's what you'll be able to say if these cuts are made. Okay.
Correct.
And this is going on the school website, you said?
Correct.
Okay, and then when you put it there, it'll be easy for folks to find and easy for people to understand.
We created a financial link. We have a page that has all of those on it. There's also a button that takes you big red button. As soon as you hit our website, if you hit that big red button, you go right to the financial page. And then there's some jumps from there. But we are taking feedback. We've actually changed quite a few things. Since the last meeting, people have emailed me. They've emailed Andreas. They've called and said, "Hey, I can't find this. Where do you find this?" And we know where to find it, but if you call me, tell me. So we've modified several things, and we're taking that feedback because we want this information to be accessible.
Yeah, I've received a number of emails, and I've had discussions with people over the communication part of us. I think as a district and as a board in the past, and I think by doing things like this, Mike, by making it easy for people to find and understand, is a way to start the process of making this better form of communication. So I can assure everybody that that's what we're definitely going to do, just like Kevin already stated in the beginning of the meeting. So
again, I just want to make sure you understand that when people start calling you or emailing you, that people need to understand that this is a menu, things that we can choose from in order to meet that dollar amount that we have to cut. When you look at this list, it's frightening. It's depressing. It's the things that we built over the last 7 to 8 years to provide opportunities for our students, but it doesn't mean that all of them are going to happen. The tough part will be when we decide on the millage, identify what we need to cut. The tough part then will be deciding on what that's going to be, but the goal will have to be that we can't impact a student's education, their ability to get their credits, and in the core.
And a couple of things. First, this list, you look at it and it's pretty, it doesn't state people's names, it's just positions. Get rid of those things. But everything is tied to a person. A lot of those people are in the audience tonight. There are staff members, there are neighbors, there are friends, and it's hard to decide on this. The other thing is, when we hear about the different millages or different millage options, and I said last month, I was in, people have rejected a 7.5, so we're gonna try for an 8, a 9, a 10. Voting what I feel isn't always what I should do, and I try to listen to the community, and I know we all do. But what I've heard from the community is either I'm not voting for anything, or go for it all. And so tonight I've got to kind of look at not necessarily what I think, but what I've been told by the community to try to maintain what they want. Also understanding that thanks to the state, they're pushing a lot back to the local voters. So it's not what the state's going to give us, it's what the community wants. And I think I'm prepared tonight to move forward with what I think the community wants.
This is a biennial budget year. We have new governor coming in. We'll have a new budget. We don't know what that is, but I can tell you for as long as I've been in education, or we can just use as long as I've been in Streetsboro, that budget hasn't changed by more than $100,000 up or down. We're very close to that, and that's nothing when you're talking about our budget. So we can't bank on anything happening from our state legislature. We're still funded third behind prisons and highways. And so we're still not the most important thing in Ohio.
Haven't been for a long time.
Do we need any discussion? Do you want me to run through the different millage calculations, or do you guys know those? Tell me what you need.
For the benefit of everyone here.
So if we didn't want to make any cuts and leave everything as we know it, first of all, we currently identified about an estimated $192,000 in cuts that we've already made. And I don't know if you want me to go through those or not, but we've already made about $192,000 in cuts. So moving into May, if we want to create a levy that will allow us to move forward as we are now, basically keep Streetsboro intact as we know it, that would require a 10 mil levy. That would generate $4.9 million. That would cost the homeowner of a $100,000 home $350 a year. And if you want to break that out a little bit more, someone with a $150,000 home, it would be about $525 a year. A $200,000 home, about $700 a year. And someone with a $250,000 home, that would work out to about $875 a year. That's with a 10 mil levy. Going on down, if we did a 9.5 mil levy, that would require me to cut $400,000 from the budget each year. Well, $400,000, and that would have to stay out for all 5 years. That would generate $4.6 million, and that would cost the homeowner of a $100,000 home $332 a year. And if you want to hear some of this,
Mr. Galvo, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When we talk about the value of your home at $100,000, is that the amount their home is worth, or is that the valuation that they're taxed on?
CJ,
I think that's important. That
If you have a $100,000 home, you then get an assessed valuation. So it'd be 35% of that, which would be $35,000, and that's how you're taxed.
So when we quote these numbers, is it quoted on the valuation portion, or is it quoted on
what it's actually going to be? So if you have a $100,000 home times the 35%, it would be the $35,000 valuation, which is what then those numbers reflect.
So what you're saying is, if you have I'm just trying to clarify. So if you have a $100,000 home and you said it costs $350 a year, when the auditor assesses it, the auditor actually assesses that $100,000 home at $35,000.
Yeah, if they appraise your home at $100,000, then the assessed tax value would be $35,000.
And your tax is based on the assessed value.
Correct.
So basically, you'd almost have to have like a $300,000 home market value to get to assessed value of like $105,000, maybe $350. Do you understand my point?
No, it would be $100,000 times 35% to get your assessed value,
Okay.
and that's what the taxes are based off of. Then. So if you have a $250,000 home, it would be 35%, and that's what these tax values are based on. That assessed valuation.
But when we quote 100,000, are we saying the resale value of that home?
We're saying 100,000 would be the appraised value, but the assessed value of that home would be 35,000.
When we're quoting these numbers, it's on the appraised value. It's not on the 35%. No. Just want to clarify.
Yeah, so what it's being quoted off of, $100,000 is what you would get from the Portage County, and they'd say this is what your home is appraised at. You're then charged taxes by the assessed value. Okay, so if you have a $100,000 home, 35% is the assessed value.
that's what you pay taxes on.
That's what you pay taxes on. So when you're hearing these numbers, 1 mil on a $100,000 home is $35, based off of the 35,000 assessed value.
And I think here we are going to make it a little easier by having some type of a calculator on.
We're in the process of creating a calculator that it's already on the auditor's website, but we're gonna put it directly on our website, or at least the link. We're working on that still. Wasn't as easy as we thought, but it's achievable. But a resident will be able to go in and actually type their address, I believe, and it'll bring up their property back, and it'll tell you exactly what you have to pay a year.
It's
Based on the levy that you decide to put on the ballot.
That's
So
still
we have to know
on,
that first.
that's still on the auditor's website for
7
the
minutes.
last.
Correct, and it's, so it's not a good one to go to right now because it's going to be different. So
So
as
when
soon
we
as,
post this, you'll have that on the website as well.
correct.
When do they update it, with the approval of the intent or with the necessity? When we approve the resolution of necessity?
It would have to be ready to go on the ballot, so.
Oh, so they're not going to change it until
No,
November,
No,
until May.
no. They'll change it as soon as we pass our resolution to proceed.
To proceed,
So we
okay.
have to pass the 2 resolutions, then it's set for the ballot in May. Once it's set for the ballot in May, that'll change. That's why it's not on the website yet, because we could have put the link that's already live on our website, but it would give them the wrong information. So we didn't want to do that.
And didn't mean to confuse it, but taxes are confusing to some, so.
The taxes are confusing to a lot of people. When we start talking about mills, I had someone ask me the other day that, please help clarify to people that a mill doesn't mean $1 million. And I'm not saying that to be funny or downgrade. It's demonstrating that this is very difficult to understand. You know, and when we're outside of a levy year and you don't sit and read it and live it every day, I've got to go back and reread everything just to make sure I have it correctly, because it's so difficult and it changes. So do you want me to continue down through the millage? So if we went with the 9 mil levy, we have to estimate cuts of $600,000 a year. That would cost a homeowner of a $100,000 home approximately $315 a year. That would generate $4.4 million for 5 years. And then a 9 mil levy. That was 9. Did I say 9?
Yeah.
Okay. On a $150,000 home, that would be $472 a year. On a $200,000 home, $630 a year. And on a $250,000 home, approximately $787 a year. Moving on down, an 8.5 mil levy, if we put that on the ballot, we would have to cut $900,000. That would generate $4.1 million approximately. That would cost the homeowner of a $100,000 home $297 a year. If you owned a $150,000 home, that'd be about $446 a year. A $200,000 home, $595 a year, and a $250,000 home, $743 a year. If we went down to an 8 mil levy, that would require us to cut approximately $1.1 million from our budget. That would generate $3.9 million. Cost the homeowner of a $100,000 home $280 a year. $150,000 homeowner $420 a year. A $200,000 homeowner $560 a year. And a $250,000 homeowner $700 a year. And then finally, if we jump back to that original millage that we did in November, a 7.5 mil levy, we would have to cut $1.3 million from our budget. That would cost a homeowner of a $100,000 home $262 a year. That generated about $3.6 million. And $150,000 homeowner would cost $393 a year. A $200,000 homeowner $525 a year, and a $250,000 homeowner $656 a year. So obviously you take that divided by 12, and that gives you your monthly increase on your house payment. Or if you already have your house paid off, that your tax burden. Any questions about those?
So the question is, where do we land?
Correct.
Again, I've heard from the community, I'm not voting for it, or if you're going to put it on the ballot, put on everything. I'm not comfortable with that, but I will vote with what I've heard from the community. I would say reluctantly 10 mils.
I'm concerned about the viability of passing 10 mils, 7.5 mils was a difficult sell, and bringing it up 2.5 mils will be a monumental task. You know, as you go, you know, through the list there, those extra dollars that are generated I mean, the cuts that we're going to have to make just by not passing it in November at 7.5 mils, we're up to $1.5 million that we have to cut already. I don't know what the rest of you feel.
I think the problem we had with the 7.5, like I said last time, wasn't the amount. I don't think it was people were scared by the number. I think it was that they didn't have the faith, they didn't believe in us that they would vote. I think it was a referendum. It wasn't voting on is that a good amount or not. It was a referendum on how good a job we're doing. And I think that's why it failed. That's from what I've heard. And I think that whatever number we commit to here, if we pick it, we need to commit to asking ourselves and asking everyone, why did you vote no? What's wrong? What can we do to make it better? Which we already started with some of the stuff. I mean, like what John Grace is doing with the transportation department is amazing. Like that's a step in the right direction. I think that it failed because people didn't think we were doing the right thing with the money, not because how much money it was. And I think that we shouldn't be afraid, you know what I mean, that 7.5 failed, so we shouldn't ask for more, because I don't think it failed because how much it was. And so, I mean, on that, like last time we were discussing it, I did say we should go for 10, because I don't think we should be asking people to vote yes for this, and we might cut your favorite program, especially with this list that's going to be out. It's going to be public tomorrow, and everyone's going to have to say, well, look, that's my student's favorite teacher. That's my program. That's why we moved this district. Whatever it is, it's on that list. And they want me to vote yes for this, but maybe it won't be there. If we're voting for a millage that involves cuts, it's going to make hard choices for a lot of people. And I worry that it would turn into another referendum on how good a job we're doing, as opposed to, is this an appropriate amount that I can pay every year to support quality schooling? So last time I was all about the 10. I did stop in and talk to CJ, and he assured me that we could go with a lesser number than 10 without making a lot of deep cuts. That, like, I was worried, I'm looking at 8.5 is $900,000. I'm like, oh my gosh, where are we going to find that? But he said it wouldn't be that difficult. It wouldn't make that big of an impact on everything to do an 8.5. So I would say, I mean, I guess it's all going to come down to just discussing what numbers we think. And I'd say let's start the discussion at 8.5.
I say we go with 10 mil. I don't want any of the teachers or any of the programs to get cut. I think the community will support it. I think as long as we do a great job at communicating why we're doing this and how important it is, I think the community will back us up. So I don't want anything to go. We've come a long way to be where we're at. So my thought is to go with 10.
That's where I was last month. And CJ said we don't need to do 10 mil to come out with not a lot of cuts.
So there's always efficiencies, right? There's always inefficiencies and efficiencies, right? We can always get better. I support this board and this school district, and if we can do a 10 mil, I think that's the best thing for this district. What I was saying with the 8.5 mil, and Andy's exactly right, is that I feel that there are some purchase service things that we could cut back on potentially. I think there's some costs that have arisen due to some legal obligations that aren't always going to be there, and potentially cut around $175,000 to $200,000 just on the purchase service line alone. Now, if we get the 10 mils and we can still be efficient, because that's our goal, and that's been my goal since I started here. I think you all have realized that and know that. I'm trying to be as efficient and as transparent as I possibly can, and I'm going to continue to fight for that. We can start setting the district up again like we were in the past, why we didn't need a levy for, since 2010 was the last operating levy.
So my concern in the last meeting, I was thinking, I understand your rationale. I think I was thinking something more in the middle, because I was thinking about some of those efficiencies you talked about. As I hear you talk, I understand both of your points. But the other thing that occurs to me between these levies is, I mean, in another 5 years, are we going to be back looking for new money? And does it make you know, does it make sense to do an 8.5 mil levy if we're going to come back in 5 years and say we really needed those couple extra mils? I mean, how do we judge that in terms of, you know, I do understand the community's point about, you know, it is confusing with the renewals, but with new money, you know, how can we get to a point where we're not having to come back and say, oh, we need new money again?
Well, I think that the way that we do that collectively as a team is we develop a plan and we stick to that plan. A budget, a spending plan, a hiring plan, staffing plan, things of that nature. And we make sure we stick to that. And we make sure that when we make any types of decisions when it comes to hiring or things of that nature, because those are very impactful things, that we are hiring and we're hiring efficiently, that hire does in fact need to happen and things of that nature. That's the performance background and operations background coming out in me right there. So I think if we can develop plans like that for long-term success, then the picture becomes a little more clear. So that, you know, that's the best way that I can answer that question for you right now.
But we were not top heavy before. Some of the things we brought back after the 2010 new money were just bringing us back to where we had been. We didn't add a whole bunch of really new stuff. We just brought back.
We added electives.
Yeah.
But you have to remember, you said in 5 years, can we predict that we can't predict that because you have so many unknown costs. For example, 2 years ago, we hired an additional 5 intervention specialists because of the number of students with disabilities that moved into this district. 5 intervention specialists as a BA Step 0 family plan, you're looking at $300,000 or more. That's an unknown thing. So it's and that's why it's dangerous to look at a 5-year forecast, because our buy-in and budget changes every 2 years. There's so many unpredictable things that can happen.
You know, Mike has done things already, like cutting costs with paper and some other things. We need to do that all the time, not just during the time when the levy did not pass. So I challenge people like Andreas, people like CJ, people like Mike, Arian, those people have to make sure that we are always looking for ways to save. We have to continue to do that all the time. We cannot become complacent on it. We have to.
But remember also that when we added those 5 intervention specialists because of kids that moved into our district, we actually cut some programs that we weren't using efficiently to try and make up some of the money, the impact of those teachers.
I'm not saying that you aren't doing it. Like, I'm saying we still need to continue to do that, to have that mindset. I mean, I don't care, I will do whatever I can, and I'm sure all the board members will as well. If I have to walk outside in bare feet at 3 in the morning, you know, tired as heck to get this levy to pass, to go door to door or wherever, what do we have to do? That's what we have to do to get this levy to pass. So I challenge everybody to do the same.
I'm going back to Andy's point, which I did appreciate that by, you know, putting this on the website and then saying choosing a lower millage could leave it open for, you know, well, what of those things are we going to cut? If we don't pass the 10 mils, if we go for a lower.
Well, we don't know that. That's going to be what we're going to have to sit down. We're going to have to look at everything. We're going to involve our administrative team, and then we're going to have to present options to you as a board.
And I think we as a board, we charge the administration with looking at other programs where, you know, whether they're electives or whatever, where maybe it's not as popular. So, I mean, it's kind of like going back to a restaurant. If the restaurant's not popular, it's not going to stick around. So why would we have several programs if they're not popular programs? Why would they stick around? And we can move people around instead of, you know, paying somebody to teach. I'm just taking a number, 5 kids, you know, versus 30.
Right.
So I think that just goes back to the efficiency all around. Correct. So I've heard some numbers, a couple of tens, a couple of eight and a half. What's the desire of the board to move forward?
I haven't said anything yet because I wanted to hear what everyone had to say, but it's like a seesaw when you're sitting up here. I mean, 10 mils, I'm thinking 10 mils. When we started talking about this, if 10 mils is the number, we need to go for 10 mils or nothing. But then you start thinking about what happens if we put it on for 10 mils. And maybe it would have passed to 8.5, but we were being somewhat greedy, if you want to think about that, to go after everything. So, the one thing that I heard, and personally, if it was me, I'd probably go for all. But I'm not just here thinking about myself. I can't do that. I got to think about all the kids that are out there that this is going to affect. And I listened to some community members, some people talk about it. One of the comments were, you didn't pass an 8.5 or 7.5 mil levy. What makes you think you're going to pass a 10 mil levy? So one of the bits of that conversation was that they felt that we need to show the community that we are looking at expenses. We are looking at things that we could adjust. And maybe 8.5 mils is the number. That to go down to 7.5 mils or lower, it's pretty detrimental to what the outlook would be like if we do that low of a number. I think, and I did speak to CJ and Mike quite often about that number, and 8.5 mils is probably, in my opinion, our best opportunity to pass this thing. But we need everybody behind it. We need yard signs in everybody's yard. Can't just pick and choose who we're going to put them in. We got to put them in every yard. We got to get everybody to the levy meetings. That's where the communication is going to happen. We can explore. I know Mike does Twitter a lot, Instagram. I'm not even sure which one the kids use. What do you guys use right now? Instagram, or is it?
Snapchat, Twitter.
Snapchat is the new thing now. So, but the kids are the ones that also deliver the message to their parents, and we need to communicate with them as well, not just the parents. So I just think that whatever we need to do to blast that information out, we need to do. And I'm not the guy to run social media, so I really don't know how to do all that stuff. So I'll probably look at some of the experts in the room.
Mike, what's the difference between the 8.5 and the 10 mil for a $100,000 home?
8.5 mil levy would be $297 a year. The 10 mil would be $350.
So we're talking $60 a year
Difference.
for 1.5 mils. I don't think that's that much to ask, to be honest with you. I don't. You can beg to differ or disagree, but I think $60 is.
The other thing we need to combat is when there's negative information that's posted out there, or printed out there, somehow you need to get that and squelch it. I saw no signs that said the average person is going to pay $656. I can't remember the number, but it was right outside of Walmart. But $626 a year is what they were saying the average yard's going to cost you for this levy, and that was the furthest thing from the truth. So we need to be able to combat that information and do it efficiently as well. And we can't do it with a handful of people. We need help.
Well, going back to what Kevin said earlier in the meeting about communication, I absolutely agree that we can look at how we can communicate better. I know that as a district, we cannot say through, your accounts or through district accounts, vote yes or vote no, but we can provide the information, and we can maybe look for opportunities to push that information out as opposed to having people come to the website or having to look for the website. I don't know if it's a phone blasting, if you need information about the figures, there's a link and this is where you find it, or if it's putting that information in an email and blasting it out, or, but I think that's part of the discussion, maybe not right this minute, but part of the discussion is how do we enhance communication by pushing it out with, and like I said, we don't have to say vote yes, we just need to give the facts so that people have it in their hand. That's up to the levy committee to tell people to go vote yes. You know, like I said, after I left the last meeting, you know, I kind of threw out the high and the low. I thought, you know, that having to pass try to attempt a $7.5 million levy, knowing that you're going to have to make over $1 million in cuts, even if it passes, doesn't make sense. And I would like to see things stay exactly as they are, but I'm cautious about a 10 mil levy and trying to get over that. And I was landing in the middle of those levy amounts. You know, we may have to make some cuts, but you know, I think our goal would be to, as you said, maybe do it through efficiencies as opposed to surgically, as opposed to taking a hatchet to things. And I think one of those millages in the middle, and as Brian said, probably 8.5 mil, that maybe we could make some surgical cuts as opposed to, you know, the larger cuts. But, you know.
The other thing you got to keep in mind too is your cost increase every year. We have inflation. We have, I mean, so it's.
Well, and that's why I was asking about, you know, what's going to happen in 5 years. Are we going to be asking for?
I think we strung the 2010 levy out as probably a little further than we should have. You know, but we're trying to be as efficient as we possibly can as well. But this one's going to probably just get us by, I think, if we look at it, because we're making cuts and going to a lower amount. I see us being, in 5 years, we're going to be looking at it again, or sooner.
I just think it's pointless to say you're going to have a levy but still make cuts. I just don't think that resonates good with our members in the community, in my opinion.
I'll tell you this, whatever the majority decides on with this, you can count on my support 100%.
I agree with this.
I will back whatever we decide on. I just want to make sure that we're making a decision that's going to give us the best opportunity for passage. That's all I'm trying to say.
We do need 4 of 5 votes.
And I think regardless, we're going to walk out of here tonight. The board members will walk out of here agreeing to disagree. We've had a lot of information back and forth. We all have our different thoughts. And Andy says something, it's like, yeah, it's great. And Denise says something, that's great. And we're back and forth. And it's like, but, so.
Well, I think as a board, we have tended to say that once the board votes, I mean, even if there's disagreements, that the majority is the majority and you get behind what the board voted for. You know, like I said, it's a crystal ball.
So what millage should we throw out? Well, you're in a difficult position because you could say, we'll go back to our interim treasurer, the snapshot in time. Here's your 5-year forecast. Here's how things look right now. Tomorrow something happens and you go, oh, board, by the way, what we did last night doesn't apply anymore. And that's what stinks about state funding and everything else.
I think you can throw out a couple of lower numbers.
So eliminate the 7.5, the 8. That's where we're looking at over $1 million in cuts. I've heard several people in support of a 10. Is that where we want to move to?
For me to go that high, I don't know.
9, looking at a potential $600,000 in cuts, understanding we're going to try to make those surgical cuts, as Mrs. Babbitt had indicated, that are not hitting the classroom unless you go through the menu. when we get costs associated with that.
I'm sticking with the 10 mil. I'm not moving, sorry.
I mean, put anybody up. Mr. Gibson?
I'm gonna go with 9. I was where you were at last time, but after talking to CJ, I think he assured me that we can make the necessary cuts without having to drastically affect any classroom activities. He thinks that money is available elsewhere. There's flexibility. I don't want, how can you ask people to do that? They vote for this and hope you make it through. But you don't want to ask for more than you have to, because the more you ask for, the less easy it is to get it passed, frankly. I mean, people may want it, but if you don't got enough money, you don't got enough money, no matter how much you want it.
I understand that, so.
That's why I'm saying.
I get it, but just like I said before, the difference between a 10 mil and an 8.5 mil is a dinner at the Brown Derby for a family.
How many times do you go to Brown Derby a year? Actually, we go once, maybe twice, because that's where we're at. Tax wise, like that's where we're at. Like you're saying, well, maybe one less. Well, like that's what I go here. I don't go to Brown Derby at all. Like that's how, I mean, with my house, that's where we're at. And that's where some people are, is that some people have that flexibility. We're $60, $60. Some people are like $60. Well, you can find it, but it's not easy. Some people are right up against the wall. Some people come up and say, hey, look, and I'd love to pay for it, but I can't afford that. I'm gonna have to vote no, because I can't afford it.
Okay.
That's why I'd say 9.
Mr. Mueller, what's your desire?
Put me on the spot.
Yeah, sorry. It's on the spot too. Just so we can try to come to somewhat of a consensus.
When I walked in here, I was thinking 8.5.
Mrs. Babbitt?
When I walked in here, I was thinking 8.5. Although I will say, I've heard some good arguments, and I'm also, like I said, I'm just concerned about down the road, if we pass a smaller levy, are we going to be back asking the community? I mean, I understand your points about the cuts. Like I said, for me, it's, are we going to be back here in a few years? Because
For sure we will. They're putting up houses, I mean, quick as they can over there. For sure, probably whatever we pass, unless it's like 15 mils right now, for sure we're gonna be back needing more money, because there's people flying into the city. They can't get in here quick enough.
Right, and to clarify, because again, we have so many people here, if we have 100 more houses built at any of this millage, we still get that same amount every year. It's divided out a little bit more to everybody. So it's not like, oh, we got 100 new houses, well, the school district's getting more money. We're not. We're getting the same amount of money, just divided up a little bit better.
But we get more kids
Right.
to deal with.
Wow.
So 100 more houses at a kid and a half a house,
Let's
what
everybody
is the
think
more money
about,
coming?
let's everybody think about 9.
I'm sticking with 10. Sorry. If you guys all vote on 9, that's
I can
fine.
support 9 coming up from 8.5.
It's still,
I think
it still shows that
any
we,
village is going to be difficult to sell.
absolutely. And it still shows that we're looking at potential savings somewhere. I think we need to do that anyhow, but I mean, it's,
And hearing a little bit of what CJ said, I've heard everything you said, just to clarify. But taking into consideration what you said, I completely agree with Mr. Kelly. But I think if we make some cuts that aren't very detrimental to the district, and if we can do that through some of our efficiencies that we've already done and continue going, I would support 9. And we'll all do our best to keep that information out there and communicate with the community. And you know, if I knew that we could absolutely pass 10 mils, I would go for 10 mils. Like I was thinking at the beginning of the meeting. It's just, again, there's that, like you said, the teeter-totter back and forth. We've had, I'm not supporting it, or go for it all. And where do we go? And we know there's people that, like you said, you cannot, there's people that have reached their limit, others that said, I can give you this much more, I can give you this much more, I can give you this much. So where do we land?
Yeah, and you know, just to complicate it more, like you were talking about the houses, people notice when their taxes go up, but as new houses are built, that that amount that is on your taxes is going to go down because it's going to be spread among more people. So that's actually kind of in a way, sort of a, a selling point that, by approving this levy, keeping the community attractive to new home buyers who are wanting to build new homes. If you approve this levy, as those new homes continue to be built, your taxes will actually go down because that levy will be spread among more people. But if we can't fund the schools, we endanger the growth of the community and its attractiveness to those young families moving in to those nice 3 and 4 bedroom homes.
And then I think that would also affect the businesses who wants to come to.
And it affects your property values altogether, so, and it's, when the community supports schools that they're in, the values are typically higher than the communities that don't.
Well, I mean,
Hard to look at the data.
you hear it all the time. Unfortunately, in Ohio, the education that's allotted to you sometimes is based on your zip code and what local taxpayers will support. So,
So here, the majority of support seems to be for 9 mills. That where we want to proceed later in this meeting. Are you? I'm more for 9 as now than hearing some other discussions than I was at the beginning of the meeting. As far as I'm concerned. Okay, so
So if you give me a minute while we progress through, I'll populate that into the resolution of necessity on the board docs. So am I hearing 9?
9, that's reluctantly whatever the majority, I should say. Mr. Double, do you have any other reports?
I do not. That concludes my report.
Okay, moving on right now to the treasurer's report, Mr. Scarsino.
Just a quick update on the overall health of our general fund. The report that is attached that you can see shows a 3-year fiscal history. As of November 31st, the general fund had a cash balance of $4,280,391.49. This is $1,580,693.65 less than November of last year. Just showing our cash balance is declining through the historical perspective here. That concludes my report.
Any questions or comments from Mr. Scarsino? Okay, moving on then. Thank you, Mr. Scarsino. Moving on to board reports. No report from Mrs. Babbitt. Mr. Gibson?
Just that the Levy Committee has set a schedule for meetings. It's available on their Facebook page. I don't know if it's available on the district website or not. Those people know aren't looking. Mike, do you know if the Levy Committee meetings are available on the district website? Not yet. Will be.
Can we link to them?
Check.
Okay.
Check that.
Unfortunately,
I don't want to say yes or no.
Right, there's all those, if you know, I'm sure.
Because I don't want to
We've
put
never been allowed to do that in the past, but maybe something's changed.
So don't be surprised if it's not there, if legally we cannot do it because it's, again, school funds, you can't use it to push a levy.
They do have a Facebook page. It's easy enough to find. If you're not on, I'm sure you know someone that is. And I would encourage, like I said, everyone needs, like we're always saying, everyone needs to get out and get involved and help us spread the word. So if you check on their website or on their Facebook page, they've got a list of all the meetings. The first one is on the Monday or Tuesday?
Monday.
Monday.
Monday at 6 o'clock on State Route 43 at the
That's
Big
the Michael
Michael's.
building. Right across from Speedway, Pizza Hut.
In that area.
In that area. Speedway. There we go. That's all.
Okay, the only thing I have relating to city council is the agendas for next week's council meetings were forwarded to you, so those will be in your mailbox, in your emails if you haven't seen them yet. Mr. Kelly.
I have nothing to see.
Mr. Viola.
Just real quick, I wanted to talk a little bit about last month's Maplewood meeting. Mr. Valvo came and presented a couple of plaques to Randy Griffith, the superintendent there, kind of commemorating the work that the Maplewood students and staff has done for our building project. One of the plaques shows the picture of the logo that they designed and built that's in the front entrance of the high school. And there will be a bronze raised leather plaque that's going to be placed underneath that piece of artwork that the Maplewood students created. That'll be there for many, many years to come. Just pointing out that it was done by students and the work that they put in. Everybody that I guess the students that are still here walk past that painted logo right in the entrance. It's pretty cool. Your fellow students that were here before you made those. So just wanted to point that out. And then the other plaque that was presented was for the work on the concession stands at the ball fields. So I know Randy Griffiths was very, very appreciative of receiving those, and he was excited to present it to the staff and students at the school. So just wanted to bring that up and say thank you for doing that one.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to consent agenda items. Ask for a motion to approve consent agenda items B through L.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? I'd like to mention donations. Thank you to the Home Depot, the police department, 2 anonymous donors, and a fraternal order of Eagles who made donations in excess of $5,000 total. We're also looking at the 2020-2021 calendar approval tonight. Once that's approved, it'll be up on the website as well. Any other comments? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes. The motion passes. Moving on to superintendent's recommendations.
Just have 4. Item A, it is recommended the Board of Education adopt the designee's decision to affirm the suspension on student A.
I'll move. I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes. Is this vote, or I've never had one of these come up. Is this because we moved the suspension hearings to you from us, or I have no idea what this is?
The board, several meetings ago, they need the designee to hear any appeal of a suspension. So if a parent or a family wants to appeal their child's suspension, that went to me.
Yeah.
So there were 3 which are on the agenda that were appealed to me. And if that's the result, these will be the results of the appeal. The board has to adopt the recommendation from the designee.
So basically, we are affirming your decision.
Correct.
Right, and this is normal in
Right.
the business of educating students that
Correct.
the superintendent would be the designated to
Yes.
those hearings.
Yes.
It's not something that we.
I just want to make sure that's what we're looking at, yeah.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mr. Kelly? Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mrs. Baba? Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes. Motion carries.
Item B, it is recommended the Board of Education adopt the designee's decision to affirm the suspension on student B.
I'll move.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Baba? Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
And motion carries.
Item C, it is recommended the Board of Education adopt the designee's decision to affirm the suspension on student C.
Move. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Sorry. You guys are really keeping me on my toes.
You ready? Okay.
I'm ready now, sir.
Okay. Hearing no other comments, call for the vote.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Okay, item D, it is recommended the Board of Education pass the resolution of necessity for general operating expenses levy on the May 7, 2019 ballot at 9 mills for a period of 5 years, first due in 2020.
I'll move.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Yes, we will also then, whether you want to do it right now during the discussion phase, we need to pick a date to do the next resolution. That needs to be, CJ is going to actually, you want to wait, CJ?
Well, want to make sure that we have it certified prior to setting a date for a meeting.
So we're gonna have to have a date.
But we're gonna have to have a date, so as soon as I have that certified, I can send an email out arranging a date, but it'll be quick, like as soon as we get it, as soon as we get that certification, we'll try to do a meeting in the next day, or even that day.
How many members do we need for that?
Or
I think 4.
yes votes.
And we have to give 24 hours notice, right?
Correct.
So if you
Yeah.
get it on a
Correct.
Monday, we could potentially meet, depending on what time notice goes out, on Tuesday.
Yes, yes, and as soon as I get it, I'll let everyone know. I tried to get a quick answer today and make sure we can get it turned around quick, but I didn't quite get there.
Typically, the turnaround time has been historically 5 days.
What's the latest that we can get it for? I mean,
I mean, we want it, the earlier the better, because it gives them time to look at it, let us know if there's any issues with it going on the ballot. So then it gives us time if we would have to have another meeting prior to fix something.
potentially get a lower number, like issue 1 or 2.
Oh, yeah, I'm not exactly sure how they hand out the issues per se, but,
Well, they have to certify the ballot language. And so if there's
Yeah.
any problem with the ballot language, then that gives us time to go back and have our attorney review ballot language to make sure it's correct.
So we may be looking at the middle to end of next week or very early the following week.
Right, and the more time that we have prior to the February deadline, the better. Okay.
We'll wait, as soon as he gets that, we'll set something up, we'll schedule a date. Yes, okay. Let me catch back up. Do we have a motion?
And it's been seconded.
And seconded. Any other discussion? Call for the vote.
Mr. Violi,
Yes.
Mrs. Ballard,
Yes.
Mr. Grimm,
Yes.
Mr. Gibson,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes. And that motion passes.
That concludes my recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Galvin. Moving on to treasurer's recommendations.
It is recommended the Board of Education approve the alternative tax budget for fiscal year 2020 as attached and authorize the treasurer to file the document with the Portage County Budget Commission.
Second. Discussion, Mr. Skarski.
Yes. Just, this is something we do every year, typically at this meeting. It's an alternative tax budget similar to putting together a forecast of funds, things of that nature. Just standard procedure.
Any other discussion? Call for the vote, please.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes. That motion carries. Moving on, is there any new business? Any old business? Okay, moving on, item 9, Board President's recommendation. It is recommended the Board of Education enter into executive session to consider the employment and dismissal of a public employee or official and to discuss details relative to security arrangements and emergency response protocols for a public body or a public office with possible action to follow.
Second.
Move in second, any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Baba?
Yes.
Mr. Gibson?
Yes.
Mr. Grimm?
Yes.
Mr. Violi?
Yes.
Motion carries. We are in executive session at 8:14. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight.